Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's class, we will check out the 2 marks answer, that is VSAQs of Unit 5 Agricultural Sector. Okay, as per the blueprint, you are getting 2 marks from this unit. So the first question is, what is the share of agriculture in the national income? So at the time of First World War, the answer, at the time of First World War, agriculture contributed 2/3 of national income, and after the initiation of planning in India, the share of agriculture and allied activities means all the other activities related to the primary sector, all the forestry, fishery, so all the animal husbandry, so all those activities, they are called as the allied activities, declined from 56.5% of GDP in 1950-51 to 16.5% of GVA in 2019-20. So GDP, the gross domestic product, nowadays instead of GDP, the Central Statistical Organization is using the concept GVA, that is the gross value added. Okay, so that's why 56.5% of GDP in 1950-51 to 16.5% of GVA in 2019-20. So you can see that the share of agriculture in the national income has decreased from almost 55% to nearly 15% to the national income of the country. So this is in accordance with the progress of the country. That means the share of other sectors have contributed more compared to the contribution made by the agricultural sector. So all the developed countries, this is what is happening. Once the country develops, the share of agriculture will decline and the shares of other sectors will increase. So the same thing happened in India also. Okay, then the second question, share of agriculture in employment. And so in India, the absolute number of people engaged in agriculture has increased from 98 million in 1951 to 235 million in 2001, but in terms of percentage, it has decreased from 70% in 1951 to 43% in 2019. However, in developed countries like UK and USA, only 2 to 3% of the working population is engaged in agriculture. So that means what? In our country, even though in absolute numbers, the number of people employed engaged in agriculture and allied activities has increased from 98 million in 1951 to 235 million in 2001. But when you calculate in terms of percentages, it has decreased from 70% in 1951 to 43% in 2019. Same thing because of the employment relative increase in the percentage of employment in the other sectors. But still in our country, the share of employment in agricultural sector happens to be high when you compare the percentage of people employed in agriculture in other developed countries like UK and USA, where there are only 2 to 3% of the working population is engaged in agriculture. Okay, next, moving on to third one, relation between agriculture and industry. And so the agro-based industries like sugar, cotton textiles, jute, edible oil, vanaspati, etc. depend directly on agriculture for their raw materials. So any industry that depend on agriculture for their raw materials, they are called as the agro-based industries. And many other industries also depend on agriculture indirectly. Similarly, agriculture also depends on industries for agricultural machinery, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. So this is a mutual dependence of agriculture and industry. Fourth one, irrigation. Answer, supply of water to crops at regular intervals is known as irrigation. Irrigation facility reduces the dependence on rainfall. But in India, by the year 2019-20, only 45% of the total cropped area has irrigation facility. Lack of irrigation is one of the reasons for low productivity in Indian agriculture. So that means what, even today still 55% of the total cropped area in our country depend on monsoon. So that's why Indian agriculture is a gambling in monsoon. So because of the lack of irrigation facility, the productivity of Indian agriculture is low. That is also one of the reasons for low productivity in Indian agriculture. Fifth question, agricultural productivity. So you can see that this question has been asked in March 2022 and 2016. And so average production of crop per hectare is known as agricultural productivity. So you are taking the total crop area out of the, you are calculating the average average per hectare, what is the yield of that particular crop or that particular land. So that is what is known as the agricultural productivity. So that is the yield per hectare of land. So that is what is known as agricultural productivity. So the agricultural productivity in India is low compared to some of the advanced countries like USA, Belgium, etc. in spite of the fact that India is an agricultural country. So when you compare the productivity of other countries including USA, Belgium, Egypt and all, like wheat, corn, and you see that the productivity of Indian agriculture, that is the average productivity per hectare of land in India is low compared to the developed countries, some of the developed countries, in spite of the fact that India is an agricultural country. Okay, the sixth one, land degradation. So this question has been asked in March 2015. A temporary or permanent decline in the productivity of land is known as land degradation. Because of soil erosion or the degradation of land, the quality of land decreases. So the land will not be, the soil will not be able to yield the same productivity as it was yielding before. So that is what we say it is land degradation. In India, nearly half of the country's land, that is 329 million hectares, is degraded. So out of the 329 million hectares, half of the country's land happens to be degraded. Out of this, 43% of the land suffers from high degradation and 5% of the land has become unusable, resulting in low agricultural productivity. So 5% of the land you cannot use it. So all this causes to low productivity. Seventh one, abolition of intermediaries. Answer, intermediary systems such as zamindari, mahalwari and raitwari systems were prevalent during British India to collect land revenue from the farmers. So these were all the intermediaries, the middlemen appointed by the British government to collect the revenue from the farmers and pay to the British government. So some of the popular intermediary system which was prevailing at the time of British rule in our country was the Mahalwari system, the Zamindari system and the Raitwari system. Since these intermediaries cheated and exploited the farmers, after independence, the Indian government abolished all these intermediaries during the first 5-year plan, that is between 1951-56, as a part of land reforms measure. So all these intermediaries, all these middlemen, they used to charge heavy land revenue, heavy rent from the farmers, and they pay only the fixed amount of rent to the British government. So they were all the farmers were severely exploited by these middlemen. So because of this, when the government introduced the land reforms after independence, the first land reform measure what the government of India has done is to abolish all these intermediaries. Okay. Next, eighth question, IADP. Answer, Intensive Agricultural Development Program, IADP, was started in India in 1960-61, which was the beginning of Green Revolution. So intensive agricultural development program, the name itself says it is an intensive program. Intensive program means with the same given piece of land, how it is possible to get more and more amount of output. So there are two types of cultivation, intensive cultivation and extensive cultivation. Extensive cultivation means more land is brought under cultivation. Since that option is limited, what the country or the government or the countries all over the world are doing is, with the same piece of land, how to get more and more amount of output. That is what is known as intensive cultivation. So by applying the modern inputs, more output can be got from the same piece of land. So this was the first program started in 1960-61 in our country, and which happens to be the beginning of Green Revolution. So Green Revolution consists of several programs like IADP, IAEP, HYVP, irrigation, etc. So this is the first program of Green Revolution. It is also called as package program, as the farmers in selected districts are provided modern agricultural inputs in single package to boost the agricultural productivity. What the government of India has done is, the government of India has selected some 7 districts all over the country. Some 7 districts were selected. That's what the selected district. Some 7 districts were selected which are proper, which is not prone to droughts or floods, and which is very normal and properly maintained by the village municipalities and all. So those kind of districts were selected by the government, and then in those districts the farmers were given in single package all the requirements for modern agricultural cultivation. That is all the hybrid varieties of seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Whatever is required apart from loan assistance to buy all these agricultural inputs. So whatever is required is given to the farmers in those selected or 7 districts in a single package. And the government started this as a trial method. Since the output was very good, the government extended the program to other districts also, and finally it became the Green Revolution. Okay. Next, ninth question, Green Revolution. So you can see that this question has been asked in several board exam papers. March 2022, 2020, 2018, 2017, 2015 and 2014. Answer, increase in agricultural productivity and production during mid-60s by applying modern inputs like HIV seeds and chemical fertilizers is termed as Green Revolution by William S. Gord in 1968. So William S. Gord was the first person to term the agricultural productivity through modern inputs as Green Revolution. Okay, and Norman Ernest Borlaug, a famous American agronomist, is the father of Green Revolution. It is also known as New Agricultural Strategy. This Norman Borlaug, he tried the hybrid varieties of seeds in Mexico because Mexico was severely affected by some kind of worms that is affecting all the crops. So he discovered some hybrid varieties of seeds which is called as the Mexican wonder wheat. So that kind of crop was selected in Mexico, and it tried that, and that was able to withstand all that worms, and then the productivity became very good in Mexico. So the same thing was followed in our country also. So that's why since he discovered, it was Norman Ernest Borlaug was called as the father of Green Revolution. Okay, and it is also known as New Agricultural Strategy because from the traditional methods of cultivation we are moving on to the modern methods of cultivation. So that is why it is called as the New Agricultural Strategy. Then the 10th question, PACS. PACS or Primary Agricultural Credit Societies operate at the lowest tier of 3-tier cooperative credit structure at the village level. So these cooperative credit societies, they have a 3-tier structure to lend loans to the farmers. At the lowest level, it is the Primary Agricultural Credit Societies, that is PACS. They operate there at the lower level and they have the direct contact with the farmers. And then at the district level, we have the district or the central cooperative societies, and the top level, the apex level, we have the state cooperative societies. So that's why it is called as the 3-tier cooperative credit structure. PACS mainly provide short and medium term loans directly to the farmers. Then 11th question, regional rural banks. Regional rural banks, popularly called as RRBs, were established on 2nd October 1975. Initially 5 RRBs based on the recommendations of the working group on rural banks headed by Sri M. Narasimhan. Since the commercial banks couldn't meet the entire rural credit needs, RRBs were established to provide loans to small and marginal farmers, landless laborers, artisans, and other rural residents of small means. So geographically, it was not possible for the commercial banks to establish its branches all over the country. So in order to compensate that, RRBs were established. So RRB provides loans to not only for the agricultural purpose, the entire rural area where it was established. So it confined only to that particular rural area. And then all the poor people that is like small and marginal farmers, landless laborers, artisans, and all the other rural residents of small means, whoever requires the loan, they are provided with the loans through the by the RRBs. Okay, and initially 2nd October 1975, 5 RRBs were established in our country, and currently I think we are having around 43 or 45 RRBs in our country. Okay, next 12th question, microfinance. Microfinance refers to the provision of financial services on a small scale to the rural and urban poor, including self-employed. See, the microfinance, the name itself says it is a microfinance. Micro means small, isn't it? See, the poor people, they need small amount of loan, and at the same time they want the interest to be lower and they want the EMIs to be extended. Normally all the institutional banks, they don't provide like that. So they provide a minimum amount of loan, and the interest rate, if the loan EMI period is lengthier or if the loan amount is small, the interest rate will be high. But the poor people, they want small amount of loan first thing, and they want the EMI to be extended, and they want the interest to be lower. So that kind of finance was not provided by all the institutional banks, including the commercial banks. So that's why this microfinance concept was developed. Started in India in 1970s, gradually over time, the SHG bank linkage program emerged as the major microfinance program. It provides for working capital, investment and savings. So over around 1970s, this microfinance scheme was started in our country, and mostly this microfinance scheme is used by the SHG, that is the self-help groups. Okay, and all the small amount of finance for working capital, for investment and savings being covered under the microfinance scheme. Then moving on to the 13th question, self-help groups. A self-help group, SHG, is a village-based financial intermediary committee usually composed of 10 to 20 local women or men. So in the particular village itself, a couple of women or men, mostly it is run by women, but it is not a restriction that only women can start the SHG. Anyone, even the men can also start. But then most of the women in our country, they started the self-help groups and they contribute funds, and it was on a rotation basis. Okay, and it is also in the SHG, they, because of their repaying capacity, since the repaying capacity was very high, because if one member of the group did not pay, the entire group suffers. So because of that, the members, they were promptly repaying the loans which they have taken. It is like a chit fund, and this one was observed by the government. So the government wanted to provide financial assistance to the self-help groups. That's why the microfinance linkage program to SHG was developed, and this was pioneered by NABARD. That means NABARD is refinancing to whichever banks which are lending loans to self-help groups. Okay, that's it, that's what it is. Okay, members make regular savings to fund other members of the group or to any others in the village. In India, many SHGs are linked to banks, including the commercial banks, for the delivery of microcredit pioneered by NABARD. So NABARD will refinance that particular commercial bank. Okay, next 14th question, grading. This question was asked in March 2022. Classification of agricultural products on the basis of their quality is known as grading. So there are several stages in agricultural marketing. First one is assembling. Assembling means all the produce of produce of the farmers of the entire village is brought at one place. So the second one is grading. So grading is after assembling the produce of all the farmers, then the separating the produce according to their quality. That is what is known as grading. So the main reason for grading or separating the agricultural produce is that the graded products will get better prices. Okay, otherwise there will be a mixture of inferior quality and the superior quality. So the graded products are given the AGMARK symbol, and those products will fetch better prices in the market. Okay, to improve the agricultural marketing systems, the government has passed the Agricultural Produce Grading and Marketing Act in 1937 and set up grading stations. The graded goods are stamped with AGMARK seal indicating their quality. Okay. 15th question, warehousing facilities. This question was asked in March 2016 board paper. Answer: the government of India has set up special godowns for storage of food grains and to prevent distress sale by farmers in villages and towns. See, this is also one of the problems faced by the agricultural farmers to market, to sell their commodities. Since they don't have proper storage facilities, what they used to do, they used to sell immediately as soon as the harvest is over. Okay, and immediately as soon as the harvest is over, the commodities they won't get better price because the supply will be more, isn't it? Because of that, the farmers were not getting better prices for their produce. So in order to rule out that, the government has set up the godowns, the warehousing facilities, even at the village level also. Okay, the Central Warehousing Corporation, the State Warehousing Corporations and the Food Corporation of India, that is FCI, have all been set up for the storage of agricultural produce. So now the farmers can store their commodities. Some of the warehouses are having even the cold storage facilities. Okay, so they can store their commodities, and when at the time of shortage, they can release their produce so that they will also get a better price. 16th question, CACP. Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices, CACP, was set up by the government in 1985, originally set up as Agriculture Price Commission in 1966 to advise government regarding agriculture price policy. So the main job of CACP is to advise the government regarding the what should be the minimum support price. Minimum support price is what the government should pay to the farmers when the government is purchasing the produce from the farmers, that is through Food Corporation of India, and procurement prices of agricultural products. Okay, so there are two different prices announced by the government. One is the minimum support price and the procurement price. So these two prices are determined by the or advised by the CACP to the government. Okay, so CACP also determines the minimum support prices MSP and procurement prices of agricultural products. 17th question, minimum support prices MSP. MSP is a scheme of Government of India through which the government declares minimum support prices of various agricultural products to the farmers on the advice of CACP. The government assures the farmers that their agricultural produce will be purchased through FCI at the MSP, thereby preventing the distress sale. And now what is happening? The government announces the minimum support price well in advance. So after the harvest and everything is over, whatever happens in the market, then see, after the harvest the price might fall, but the government will not reduce the price, because earlier itself the government has announced what should be the minimum support price. So that price will be paid by the government to the farmers. So that's why the government assures the farmers that their agricultural produce will be purchased through FCI. FCI is the intermediary at the MSP, thereby preventing the distress sale. Then 18th question, maximum price fixation. Answer, government determines maximum prices for certain agricultural products to protect the interest of the consumer. Minimum support price is to protect the interest of the farmers. Maximum price is to protect the interest of the consumers. So some of the essential commodities are sold through the fair price shops, or called as the ration shops. So we all know that in the ration shops, the prices of the essential commodities are lesser than what it is being sold in the open market. So in order to protect the interest of the consumer, the government is putting a ceiling what should be the maximum price for all those essential commodities that are being sold through the fair price shops. So that is what the maximum price fixation. Government determines maximum prices for certain agricultural products to protect the interest of the of the consumers. The government sells many agricultural products such as grains, sugar, rice, etc. at fair price shops, that is the ration shop, at prices lesser than the market prices under public distribution system through the Food Corporation of India, that is FCI. Then 19th question, buffer stock. So this question was asked in March 2017 board paper. Answer, buffer stock refers to storage of food grains with the sole purpose of moderating the price fluctuation. See what is happening, as soon as the harvest is over, the supply will be more. At that time, the price will be less. And then suppose if there are climatic changes and if there is no monsoon, no rainfall, then there will be shortage of agricultural commodities. At that time, the price will be very high. So there will be too much of price fluctuations. So what the Food Corporation of India is doing, after the harvest is over, whatever the commodity required at that particular time, that is being sold. The remaining extra quantity is being stored in the warehouses in the form of buffer stock. So at the time of shortage, this extra commodity is being sold in the market or through the ration shops, so that the price will be even. There will not be too much of fluctuations in the prices. When price of food grains start rising, the FCA sells food grains from buffer stock, and at the time of bumper crops, the FCA stores in the form of buffer stock to eliminate unduly low prices. Okay. Then 20th question, food security. So this question was asked in March 2022 and 2020. Ensuring that all people at all times have both physical and economic access to basic food they need is known as food security. So ensuring that all people at all times, so the entire population of the country at all times, that is throughout their lifetime, have both physical, that is the quantity, availability of food grains, and economic access. Economic access means they should have the sufficient income to purchase the food grains at whatever the prices. That is what it means. So to put it very simply, all the people at all time, they should be able to purchase the food grains what they have to consume, that is nutritional food grains throughout their lifetime. So if that is there in a particular country, then that country is said to be having food security to its population. So food security implies that the entire population of a country should be able to purchase nutritional food grains throughout their lifetime. Then 21st question, food security legislation. The Government of India enacted National Food Security Act NFSA in July 2013. This act provides legal entitlement to receive subsidized food grain. That is, the poorer sections of the people, they can get food grain at a lesser prices. So in order to have that, they should have that, they should be able to purchase that. The government has passed an act. So once the act is being passed, then all the categorized people, they are having the legal entitlement to purchase food grains at lesser prices. So the price fixed was 1 rupees for cereals and 2 rupees for wheat and 3 rupees for rice per kg. So at 1, 2 and 3 per kg for nutritious cereals, wheat and rice respectively, to nearly 67% of the population in the country. Approximately around 70 to 75% in the urban area and around 50% in the rural area. 75% in the rural area and around 50% in the urban area. So on the whole, 67% of the poorer sections of the population, they can purchase food grains at this subsidized prices based on this National Food Security Act, which was passed in July 2013. That is what is known as food security legislation. Food grains are allocated at 5 kg per person per month for priority households category. All the below poverty line people, and at 35 kg per month for Antyodaya Anna Yojana AAY families. This was the scheme introduced earlier by the government. Whoever was eligible to get food grains based on this AAY, Antyodaya Anna Yojana, so those people are also covered under the National Food Security Act. Then the last question, 22nd, Food Corporation of India FCI. The Food Corporation of India FCI was set up on 14 January 1965. The FCI procures food grains at a price determined by the government and sells through public distribution system PDS. So price determined by the government, that is just now I mentioned, it is through CACP. So the CACP advises the what should be the minimum support price and the procurement price as well as the maximum price to be charged for the consumers. It also maintains buffer stocks of food grains to avoid price fluctuations and to ensure national food security. So if it maintains the buffer stocks, and if the Food Corporation of India releases the food grains at the time of shortage, then there will be both the physical as well as the economic accessibility of food grains to the people. So in order to ensure the national food security, it also maintains the buffer stocks and also to avoid the price fluctuations. Okay. Now these are all the 2 marks questions in Unit 5 Agricultural Sector, and as usual I have also mentioned which are all the years some of the questions have appeared in the board exam. Okay, so if you find this video useful, please like, share and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until my next class, take care, bye bye.